Hello and welcome to the Miss Rolling podcast. As usual, my name is Jacob Staten, and as usual, I am joined by JJ Armstrong. JJ, we are 1 week into the new season. How are you?
I'm fine. First game done. Excited for it all to be back. A lot to talk about. The club and the fan base have regressed back into meltdown in some parts, but it's fine. We're 1 game in. There's a lot of a season to go. How are you, Jacob?
I'm very well, mate. Thank you. I try and steer clear of the cesspit that is known as X Force nowadays. So I'm trying to steer clear of this negativity. We'll discuss the game in a minute, but yeah, I don't really think it's required. However, before we discuss the game, Jay, do we have a word from our sponsors?
We do. It'll be a quick one today because the sponsor is, again, me. Heavymetalfootball.co.uk. I do some Forest shirts on the side. If you can follow us on social media, look at the website, maybe even buy one. It would be very appreciated. Because once again, I don't have a job. Got made redundant, so thanks. And I'm going to beg weeks and weeks. So, yeah, thank you. Appreciate you just looking, but please buy something. Thank you. And you can look like Jacob once again. For those listening, it's a beautiful heavy metal shirt. One of the best you'll ever see. It's a shame you're listening. It's completely out of stock, so I don't know why he's chosen that one. But it doesn't matter. It is what it is.
It looks good. It looks good, my mate.
It does look good. Show us the back, Jacob. Are you there? Uh-oh. There you go. Wow. Look at that.
Get that down your neck. Go on.
Now, this is the audio experience that the listeners want. Describe something that they can't see. Let's move on.
Let's move on to the game. So, we start off the game, and there were no new signings in the first 11. The starting 11 was Matt Seltz in goal, so that answered the question of who's going to be first choice keeper this year. I think it's very well deserved. I wouldn't have been surprised if it was Miguel because we've just brought him in, but I'm very happy it's Seltz. I thought he was very good last season. Back four of Nico Williams, Willy Bolly, Murillo, and Olaina. I'd probably say if you swapped in Milenkovic, who didn't play because he had a 1-game suspension from his time at Fiorentina. If you swap Milenkovic in for Bolly, that's probably our strongest back four.
Agreed.
Yep. Then holding midfield was Sangare and Danilo. I think probably the only question mark was whether it was going to be Danilo or Yates. To answer that question, I'm not surprised in the slightest. The only I kind of, this goes in my head around who should be captain and things like that. But if Ryan Yates is club captain, he should, to me, says that he's probably starting. Just what I would go with on being captain. And then the front four of Anthony Elanga, Morgan Gibbs-White, Callum Hudson-Odoi, and Chris Wood. Delicious, delightful. Very strong starting 11, JJ, and for once, probably close to what our best 11 would be.
Yeah, and I do think that had Milenkovic not had his ban, I think he would have gone straight in. But I think it's good that, you know, the backup, the alternative is Bolly, who we know can perform and is a great defender. So not too worried about that. I was surprised to see Milenkovic not start, just because typically when something like that would happen when there is a ban, everyone knows about it ahead of time. So it was a bit of a surprise that no one seemed to pick up on that or know that. But, you know, more than fine with it. It was explained pretty quickly. Bolly's more than good as a backup for that. I think once the ban's over, which I believe, you know, he's available from the Saturday, I think Milenkovic will go straight to the side. But that is our strongest 11, certainly before the game on Saturday. So I was happy to see it. I think to counteract that, Bournemouth's team, we sort of said before they've got rid of Solanke. That's really good timing for us. They are still strong. You know, they've not made many signings. It's because they didn't need to. And they are a team that had our number last season. And performed really well this season. So they've got another sort of year to gel together. So 2 strong teams, I think. And obviously, well, with hindsight, I'd have snatched your hand off for a draw. But I just think ahead of the game, looking at both 11s, I thought it would be a good game, quite a balanced game. But I still think we had enough to take the 3 points from the offset just based on the starting 11s.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if the starting 11 for Bournemouth, for anyone who's interested, was Neto in goal, Smith right back, Zabani, Hyson centre back, Kirkes left back, Lewis Cook and Alex Scott holding, with Sinistera, Tavernier, I think it is, Ouattara and Semenyo as the front four. That's very strong, isn't it? That and obviously I think we'll discuss throughout the game, but that Dean Hyson for them at centre back was pretty good as well. Just signing from Juve. Quite impressed with. That's a strong team.
Cliver and Bellin on the bench, they have got a strong team. So
Ryan Christie, that Julian Araujo, they just sound from Barcelona. Jaden Anthony as well. Daniel Jefferson from Sheffield United.
Him not so much, but yeah, strong. Two strong teams, and I think come the end of the season, looking at Bournemouth squad, looking at how they performed last season, I think they did well with a manager that performed well as well, even though it looked a bit ropey at the start. I think looking at the squads, looking at how they did last season, I think come the end of the season, we might see both us and Bournemouth quite evenly matched. I think we'll have both have similar seasons based on what they did last year. So let's see. But obviously, we're going to discuss the game and the point that we inevitably got, but it's certainly not worth losing our heads about as a fan base in the first game of a team that is pretty good.
Yeah, I think actually they pointed out on the commentary. I don't know whatever, because I think it was Ethan Akoku who was the colour commentary. The pundit bounced off the commentator. He was saying that apparently we haven't beaten Bournemouth since that game that I always bang on about, where we had like the lowest percent possession and won, where Henry Lansbury got to, which is astonishing when you consider how many times we've played Bournemouth.
Yeah, it feels like it as well. They're just, I hate them. They're one of those teams that just seem to always have our number. Let's not forget, the 3-2 last season.
And the 3-2 the season before that.
Yeah, it's one of those that, it's painful to play.
It's happened again.
Yeah. So we'll go on to discuss the game. Let's continue to discuss the game, but it's not that bad.
No. Well, there was a scrappy start. I think Bournemouth were probably on top the first kind of 10-15 minutes until it happened, and it was Danilo's seemingly horrific injury. I know they've come out since and said it's kind of potentially only 6 to 8 weeks. I don't think we've had anything official from the club yet, have we? This is kind of Twitter or X.
I think the Athletic reported.
Okay, then yeah, it's pretty much true then, isn't it?
It's still hopeful. I think they said 6 to 8 weeks. I'm just a bit devastated for the lad. It's not the way, you have all this hype throughout the summer, you have all this build up. Nobody would have wanted it to go that way, where within the first few minutes, one of our biggest talents who we thought would have a really good impact and big season this season to build on what he's done well the last few seasons, for that to happen to him in such a horrible way. And at the time, if someone said to me 6 to 8 weeks at the time, I'd have laughed at them, because I wouldn't have expected what happened with that injury to be that short a time, recovery time. So I guess that shows how far, recovery and things like that, modern science has come, because I feel like in years past that would be like a complete career ender, or at least a season ender. Maybe it was a clean break, something like that, which gave him a better chance of recovery.
Yeah.
But yeah, heartbroken for him. It was nice to see him put his thumbs up, and I think obviously he felt the love from the crowd. Murillo, there's the picture of Murillo holding his hand, and he sort of has to look away, which is particularly, horrible to see. And I think full credit to the players for, after that happening, which someone that's a colleague and a friend, they sort of continued on professionally and did a job. So yeah, all I can really say about it is I'm absolutely devastated for him. I thought this would be a really big season for him this season. Not nice to see at all.
No, and every cloud has a silver lining, JJ, as you quite rightly pointed out at the time. At least the transfer window is still open.
Yeah, and it feels
just sensitive.
It feels horrible to say, but it's true. Like, we look at the squad, and the midfield position looked pretty solid. You take Danilo away from that. Granted, Ryan Yates came on and had a fantastic game.
Yeah, he did.
Gimenez still exists, and I think he's really strong. Obviously, Anderson could possibly play in that position. It is still strong, but taking Danilo out is a different profile of player to the other ones that we've got. He's very dynamic. He's very positive. He's trying to play forward pass. His link-up play with the forward players is equally as important as what he does in the centre of the park. So the profile of player is different, so it might change how we're wanting to play. But if he's only out for 3 months, is it worth dipping into the transfer market? Because to replace someone like Kim, probably going to have to spend a bit of cash. He was also linked away to AC Milan. So did we have a replacement lined up for that already that fit a similar profile to him if he had gone a bit further with that bid? So I don't know what the right answer is. I think I'm going to have to trust the club on their judgment on this. I think if he is back within 3 months, it will still be a bit of time before he's fit and ready to actually go, to be match fit. It'll take a lot of getting up to speed. So maybe whilst he might be back in training, might be 3 months, could be a lot longer than that before we actually see him play again for us. So unsure. I think whether they decide to, strengthen that midfield or just leave it as it is and wait for his return, I don't know the answer. So I'll trust their judgment on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, I think it's probably going to be, if it's 6 to 8 weeks, it's more likely to be about kind of 2 months. We've got a lot of cover in that area. We'll touch on later signings and things like that. But I think with the players we've brought in and the players that we're looking at bringing in, I think we're probably okay there, as long as it is the 6 to 8 weeks. If it's any longer than that, we probably, like you say, he's going to take a little bit of time after that to get back to fitness, isn't he? So, but again, it's a tricky spot to be in as well, this close to the end of the transfer window, because you look desperate. Not me saying that we are desperate, but you look, they know that we need another centre midfielder, as in other clubs. So you can come off looking like that, can't you?
Yeah. I think we've got enough backup, but let's see.
Yeah. Well, I was very pleased to see Ryan Yates come on. I think it could have been easy to put any number of players off the bench on. Anderson, Yates, who actually did come on. You could have put Gimenez in that position. You could have done something funky about moving one of the three behind the striker, drop gibbs-white a bit deeper and put Jota on or something. We've seen Elanga play behind the striker as well, haven't we, last season? Yeah. So we could have done any kind of that. But pleased to see Yates. I think he's had a strong pre-season, looking much better going forwards, which brings us nicely onto it becoming 1-0 to Forest. There's a tiny bit of winning the ball back further up the pitch. A quick ball into Yates, who takes a nice touch I think he just gets into the box, doesn't he? Kind of a bit of a snapshot towards the keeper and makes a decent save. But Chris Wood's doing Chris Wood things, and right place, right time, and a very smart finish into the back of the net. And it's 1-0. Thank you very much.
Yeah, Chris Wood being exactly where you need Chris Wood to be and expect Chris Wood to be. So, that's why he's been such an important player for us recently. He scores those type of goals. He can score when you need him to and be in the right place when you need him to. So I think we deserved it on the balance of things. I think that first half, we looked good for it. I'd say Yates coming on, like you say, pleased to see it, but pleased to see that any doubts anyone might have had were swiftly sort of eradicated, because personally, I think that's the best game he's had in a Forest shirt. It's a different type of game to what he typically does for us.
Yes.
He is still the disruptor. He does still battle, but I saw a lot more ball carrying, which is what I would like to see from him more. So I thought he had a great game. And if he can improve and continue like that, then whilst Danilo is injured, if he steps up and plays like that every week, then, we're in a good spot. And then it's now his position to lose for someone like Anderson or Gimenez to come in and take it. So he played really well. And he played an important part in the lead up to this goal. And yeah, Chris Wood sat on my bench on fantasy football. Unfortunately, grabbed a goal, as we know Chris Wood can do. Looked good for it. I think we looked positive in that first half and deserved it.
Absolutely. There was an offside disallowed goal for Bournemouth, and it did come from a set piece. And I've got it noted down here. Yes, it was a set piece, but at least it was a good set piece, which it was. However, it was offside. You can't be a little bit pregnant. It was definitely offside, no matter how close it was. But good Lord, it was close, JJ. Yeah, I mean, I also made a comment here in capital letters saying, "Where is the semi-automated?" They've just had 2 months to bring that in, and apparently we've got to wait for the first international break. So, cheers for that.
Yeah.
I really enjoy spending lots of time watching you lot figure something out that can be done like that. But yeah, again, it was offside. It would have been a frustrating goal to concede. But I think my point is valid that at least it was a good set piece. It wasn't just a hoofed ball into the box.
Yeah, I still think we could have dealt with it a bit better.
Yeah.
The set piece fragility, we just need to not let that seep in, because we'll talk about later late goals as a mentality seeping in. But set pieces, we need to just get over that and get over that quickly. When they showed the VAR replay, the screenshot, I actually thought they looked onside. So I was really pleased to see the stream, or what I was watching, essentially zoomed in on a player rather than showing you the whole picture. So it didn't make it look like it was offside. But when it zoomed out and showed you it, you could see, the full picture. So I was very relieved. I think I celebrated that more than us scoring, just from sheer relief. So I don't think Bournemouth didn't deserve it, but I'm glad that we went into half-time 1-0 up, because I think we deserve to be 1-0 up, if that makes sense. I know they sort of counterbalance each other, but it was positive, I think.
Yeah. And I made a comment as well. I made a note as well about the refereeing seemed. I don't know. I know there's a whole load of new protocols that referees are looking for or aren't looking for, and that kind of thing. But I don't know. There seemed to be a lot more advantages. The play seemed to flow a lot better, and I don't think that was just down to us. I think that was the referee kind of being a bit smarter, a bit more kind of street sense, I suppose, and fewer daft yellow cards, fewer yellow cards. That there's always ones where I think it probably is a yellow card, but that's going to ruin. That could potentially ruin the game at some point, if you know what I mean. I think there were fewer of them, and I did put in brackets, see how the second half goes as well. But yeah, I thought, I'm the worst in the world for saying referees are awful, so I thought it was worth a comment just to say that the new rules seem to be applied pretty well. Not that I didn't know at the time about Fabian Schär's red card for Newcastle.
Yes, or the Eze free kick that was soon to come that weekend.
Yes, or the Everton penalty. They give penalties at Everton.
I know. Or the fact that Jesus got molested. Give way. Not the best weekend for refereeing, but in our game at least it was fine.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think he's quite a good referee. We were there.
Michael Oliver?
Yeah, we were there when he actively went to the monitor and stuck with his decision, rather than changing it, which I think was against West Ham, which I don't think I've really seen since.
There was one against Spurs as well, wasn't there? Or did he overturn the one against Spurs?
Unsure. All I remember is we were there and he stuck with his decision, which I think took a bit of bravery. Yeah. So fair play to him. But yeah, refereeing was fine, largely.
Yeah. So into the second half. Now, this is something that really, really frustrates me. There were two super early subs in the second half, and I'm talking less than 10 minutes in. And that was Olayina for Harry Toffolo and Anthony Elanga for Nico Gimenez. Just make them at half time. If they can't do that much of the game, just make them at half time so that at least they've got cohesion into this, I don't know, it just frustrates me. Olayina, I think I said this in the previous podcast, great left back, definitely our first choice, wonderful player, can't seem to finish a game. And that is a huge issue for me with somebody who's meant to be our best left back or best player in a position. And Elanga, I don't know, didn't seem injured or anything like that. So if it was a tactical choice for Gimenez, but Gimenez went straight onto the right wing. Yeah, and then
I just want to point on this with the substitutions. I think this highlights where we can talk about the depth and the recruitment that we've done this season, but I think this highlights to me that we're not quite there, because I do like Toffolo. Toffolo is a good player, but I don't think he should be a second choice left back at the moment. I think we severely weakened when he came on, because the link up that Aina and Hudson-Odoi had is really essential to the way we play. Really positive, really dynamic. Whereas Toffolo does have a few faults. He is still good. He is still strong. He is fine as backup. When I say he shouldn't be back up, I don't really mean that. I think we can get stronger back up in, or starting left back bought and Olarena moved over to right back as our starting right back. But I think it highlights to me that there's not quite that depth there. And I think that's the same to me with Alanga, because Hudson-Odoi came off later as well. And your wingers after that were Gimenez and Anderson, really, both of which do not have the impact or the profile of a player that those two have. They're obviously really important to us, the way they play. Gimenez can do a job there, but we're not playing a certain way then, are we? Because you're not swapping like for like, you're just putting someone on to sort of fill a hole because you've got no one else to put on. We did have Jota on the bench, or Jota, as you would say, but I guess he's not ready. There is Sosa who's about to come in, so maybe those two will be the next ones in instead of those two out wide. But I just felt that once those subs were made, it's sort of not where we lost the game, because obviously we didn't lose, but it's where I felt the game or game plan regressed from us, because I felt like that backup and depth wasn't quite there.
See, I get that point absolutely, that it's not a positive move, but whereas in the past this kind of move under Cooper and under Nuno has absolutely killed us. I feel like we were still in the game, we're still participating, we weren't sitting back or anything like that. So usually I would wholeheartedly agree and say it's the wrong thing to do, but I think on this occasion it worked to a degree. However, it was
it was born out of necessity. I think had he had a better player at left back, or Aina able to see out a full game, or a winger that fits a similar profile to Alanga and Hudson-Odoi to bring on, I'm sure he would have done it. And this is what I would sort of correct myself then. I'd say this is where our game regressed. It's not where we lost the game, because typically we would have, like you say. So it still shows improvement. We were still in the game. We didn't lose it as we typically would, but it allowed them to come back into it, I
think what you're, and this, correct me if I'm wrong, what you're trying to say is basically, if we put round pegs in round holes, we might have progressed further into the game, rather than just with you. Absolutely, because I can only presume Jota Silva's not match fit, or he's not au fait with the team, or his English isn't that great yet, so I get it. We've also got Eric da Silva Moreira.
Forgot about him.
Right winger, could have come on in exactly that position. So the options were absolutely there. I imagine Jota Silva can play off the left as well and cut in on his right foot. So the alternative options were absolutely there. But I don't know if you just wanted a bit more of a solid, narrower team, maybe. But don't get me wrong, Gimenez played right wing under Cooper and Nuno, and has played there well. So yeah, absolutely. The next bit I've noted that was Neco Williams very lucky not to get a second yellow card. This might come down to the referee as well, although the referee did give it as a corner. There was a clear tackle, so I don't know if the referee was being a bit coy about why he's claiming not to have seen it, but it certainly looked a foul, and I certainly wouldn't have argued with it being a yellow card, and he was already on one, so I think we're a little bit lucky there.
Yeah, he's walking a tightrope once he got that yellow, wasn't he? It changed his game a bit. I think he looked a little bit more, he didn't attack with as much purpose after that. He was a bit more reserved within himself, so a shame, but I think he could probably walk away pretty happy that he didn't get sent off.
Yeah, well, I think Lewis Cook for Bournemouth was on a very similar tightrope. I think he did a foul in the first half, which I was very shocked and surprised wasn't a yellow card.
But then again, look, any Bournemouth fan that's annoyed about that, look back at Kluivert's performance last season, when he should have had about 10 reds or 10 yellows. And then just as he was about to get his second yellow, finally, they hooked him off. So they gave him a chance out of it. So
it's wrong.
It all swings back around, doesn't it?
It does. Absolutely does. There's some good Forest pressure. There's some corners. They did only result in a Bournemouth free kick, but it's still promising. Made a note that it was a great game so far at this point by Bolly and Murillo, and I almost feel sorry for Bolly when Milinkovic isn't suspended, because I imagine he's going to come straight in. And then he hooks off Cho, Callum Hudson-Odoi, and Chris Wood for I said Wes Anderson then. Good Lord, for a pastel cinematographer. For Elliot Anderson and Taiwo. I made a comment about being very narrow. I think, without those kind of adventurous fullbacks, a link-up play, particularly with Aina and Hudson-Odoi. That's probably, I don't know. I think regress might be the right word, but as in regressed in positivity, I suppose, something like that.
Yeah.
Yes, and then you made a comment around it being exactly what Cooper used to try and do unsuccessfully. This was Cooper 101. This wasn't it?
It was Cooper 101. I think I'd love to see Forest just put teams to the sword and get that second rather than packing up shot and regressing into themselves, because we're going to talk about a Bournemouth goal, which is quite late on again. Let me just look at the time. It was
81,
86.
86. Oh, I didn't realise that late.
So it's quite late. This is something that we need to stop happening, because it's going to be a spillover in terms of mentality from last season. And if you remember in the Championship, we had the Bristol game where we scored 2 very late goals to snatch the game. That mentality carried on throughout the season. You always felt that there's a chance that we would score, and it happened quite a few times. We would score in the last minute to take something from the game, be it an equaliser or a winner, because we had that mentality, we had that belief. Look at Wrexham. They've done it a lot in the recent years. The 90-odd minutes, they'll score a few and they'll win it. That mentality seeps into a team and you expect them to do something. And it worked for us in the Championship. However, we're seeing the reverse of that happen now, where the team start to get nervous after 80 minutes and they sort of panic and they think, this, we could concede again, because it's happened so many times in the last season or so, and it's largely the same squad, or pretty much is the same squad. But that mentality works both ways, because it gives the other team belief as well. Bournemouth will go, let's keep pushing, because these lot, concede really late all the time. So it's a mentality issue that we really need to stop, and stop the rot. A few games in a row where we just have the patience and just see it through and don't panic would be beautiful. However, if you put away chances or create chances and put them to the sword, you almost don't need to. 2-0 at 8 minutes is looking a lot healthier than 1-0. And, it doesn't take a genius to work that out. That's not groundbreaking punditry. It's just a fact. But it would be nice for Forest fans and the Forest team in general to just, go into the last 10 minutes comfortable. God forbid. But there's something they really need to work on this season.
Yeah. I'd like to see a manager almost trust us as the fans as well, because I think if he brought off Anderson and if he brought off Hudson-Odoi and Halanga and brought on Eric Da Silva Moreira and Jota Silva and gone for it, and this equaliser's conceded, or the worst thing happens and it's 2-1 to them, or we score a second and it's 2-2 or whatever. I'd just like to see a manager trust that Forest fans who do like football played in a certain way, who do appreciate entertainment. We were gifted for a very long time with one of the football's greatest ever entertainers, if not the greatest, in Brian Clough. Trust that Forest fans will recognise, sit there and go, we tried to do something in this game. And a bit like what Spurs fans are going through with Ange. You know what I mean? They've come through some, decent times, but they've got a real chip on the shoulder of the Spurs thing, Spursy thing, haven't they? And it's just he's trying to do something that is fundamentally right for football and what you want to see. And I'd just like to see a manager I don't know. I'd just like to see that faith repaid in us and go, you guys always bang on about wanting football played a certain way. You guys always bang on about entertainment. You guys always bang on about football being played on the grass. Well, guess what? Here's your 2 brand new wingers. Here's your striker, fresh striker replace another striker. Let's say if Danilo had started the game, let's hook Elliot Anderson on for not start the game, but finish the game. Let's hook Elliot Anderson on for him rather than Yates and be a positive change. Let's they're chasing the game. Let's chase it back at them and that kind of thing. I'd like to see it a couple of times at least.
Yeah. Well, the Forest way and the DNA of Forest playing exciting attacking football is a bit of a myth. We briefly saw it in the Championship under Steve Cooper. I mean, in recent years, not.
I think us wanting it isn't the myth, but it's a myth of You know, I
No,
think
we won it. It's the myth of what the club say. Because
Oh,
when
yeah.
Marinakis came in, he said we would play with the DNA. Might have been Randall. We play with the DNA of exciting attacking football, and
Yeah.
you know, other than that championship season where it was electric,
Yeah.
we're yet to see it. And I know it's a difficult league, but our home crowd is really important. You know, you go for it. You put on those wingers. You go for the game rather than sit back and make everyone nervous. Guarantee you that they'll carry you over the line more times than it doesn't. And
Yeah.
this is something I noticed when I was watching Leicester Spurs last night. The last few minutes, they were clinging on to a 1-1 draw. I'd say clinging on. Spurs looked pretty shit, so I guess they weren't clinging on. But either way, it was 1-1. Spurs obviously have a lot more quality than Leicester. And Steve Cooper turned around, you know, tried to lift the crowd up, waved his hands, and it stayed silent. You could almost see within that instance him realising, oh, it's not the City ground, is it? And we make such a difference as a fan base. We're so loud, we're so positive when the team try and go for it, that I think if we also go for it on the pitch, you'll notice a difference. So I think it will carry us over the line more times than it wouldn't. Either way, you know, it is a bit futile saying this because we didn't lose, so it's still fine. But I would just like us to be the positive ones, us to take the initiative, because other teams do it to us and it works a lot of the time. You know, they make positive subs. You know, we make negative ones, and ultimately, you can see the goal. You've got nothing to come back from. So, yeah, hopefully, at some point in the season, we get comfortable enough not to look over our shoulders and just actually go for games.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Which brings us nicely onto the equaliser, JJ.
Yes, good timing.
I don't think we talk about this much, but Jesus, good Lord. So, low ball in from the left wing. I can't even remember who. Would have been Cliver, maybe? No. Who would it have been?
Who knows?
Who knows? Nuno knows. Low ball in. Decent ball, actually. Decent ball there to be attacked. Harry Toffolo steps in from left back on his right foot and swings a volley clear. It hits Murillo, who takes a touch that can only be described as godlike, and it hits him squat in the chest off from this lashed volley and just hits the floor. Straight to Semenyo's feet, who lashes it towards Matt Seltzer's goal. Seltz, who in his own right nearly saves it, and it's in the back of the net, and you kind of sit there and go, what just happened?
Just unlucky, isn't it?
Yeah.
Sometimes we don't need to do a diagnostic on what's gone wrong. Sometimes it just is what it is. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it is unlucky. Obviously, it's a gut punch. It is annoying. It's a late goal again. I think in other years we'd have lost this, but frustrating. But on the balance of the game, I think a draw is very deserved. So I'd love to have seen us get the 3 points. Goes without saying, but I can't be too mad when that happens for an equaliser. We're only a few minutes away. You know, like the Liverpool one, which everyone was fuming about last season. The referee didn't sort of play the rules correctly.
Yep.
But we had multiple chances to get rid of the ball in that circumstance. It was gut punch because it was so late, but we had chances to get rid of it.
Yeah.
And I think this time wasn't that. It was just unfortunate. So I didn't lose my head about it. I was fine with it. I was annoyed. Sure. I was a bit like, but it is what it is, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think there was an immediate positive reaction. So there was a really great ball in from Neco Williams, and Taiwo had a header on goal, but it was straight at the keeper. I think if he'd probably put that either side, it would have gone flying into the back of the net. But after that, I think there was a bit of a chance for Bournemouth, wasn't there? Went out for a corner. Murillo made a block, didn't he, from the cutback, which is classic Murillo. Bit disappointing we didn't make more of a chance in added time, but I think overall seeing that out from that point was probably more important, wasn't it? Not completely fumbling the ball, I suppose.
Yeah, I can't remember added time for Forest that has ever actually been good in recent seasons. So it's been quite dull with not really many chances, with the exception of a few. Yeah, I mean, a draw's fine. It's the first game of the season. Bournemouth are good. You know, they've got a nucleus of a team there that was there last season, save for Solanke. If Solanke was there, we probably would have lost. I do feel like that. I think in other years we would have lost. They are a good side. They coached well. They did well last season. That doesn't change just because the summer's happened.
Yep.
Equally, it doesn't give us the right to beat teams like this just because the summer's happened, even though we've got the same nucleus of the squad and the same manager. So I think the fact that we saw it out for a point is a positive thing. And it's quite disappointing to see online people lose their heads enough to think that we are the worst team in the world. We're going down, blah, blah, blah. And anyone that disagrees is a happy clapper. I'm certainly not a happy clapper, but it's just fine, isn't it? It's the first game of the season. We've got a point. That's going to be important come the end of the season. There's plenty more football to be played. There's worse teams in Bournemouth, and there's better teams in Bournemouth. I think Bournemouth are going to be around the level we should be or expect to be this season. Your Bournemouths, your Palaces, people like that, maybe your Fulhams. It's teams like Leicester, Southampton, Ipswich, who did actually look quite good, possibly Brentford, even though they won. You know, there's worse teams out there. So let's not lose our heads. Let's just see what happens. You know, there is still some of the window to go. Jota and Souza will now be available, so can change the game. We've got a bit of the window left. We might strengthen in some areas. It's a good place to identify where we need to strengthen. So, you know, let's see what happens.
Absolutely. I think that's a good segue into the transfer window, JJ. Confirming that we've got Ramon Sosa in from Talleres in Argentina. Let's have a look. Omar Richards has gone out on loan to Rio Ave, which is, I don't know if you were listening last week, I think I confirmed that was Evangelos Marinakis' other club that he owns, which is in Portugal. I think the Ramsdale links have died down, but I think he's heavily linked with Wolves at the minute. They've actually made a formal bid for him, which I'm not too. I would have liked, don't get me wrong, he's a good keeper. I'd have liked him, but I'm perfectly happy with Matt Seltz and what we've got on backup. We've been linked with a striker, or with two strikers, and only getting one, which is Santiago Gimenez from Feyenoord, a Mexican striker, and we've called him Eddie Henry here, but I think that's more he wishes. Eddie NKETIAH wearing the number 14 shirt for Arsenal. I know exactly which one you'd prefer, JJ, but you're going to tell us why?
I am. If you look at the stats on screen in comparison to Chris Wood, Eddie NKETIAH and Chris Wood last season. Now, obviously, NKETIAH didn't start too many games, but appearances-wise, relatively similar. 31 and 27, 31 for Wood, 27 for NKETIAH. NKETIAH did have a bit of a run in the side, so he definitely had a few chances. Arsenal, much better team than relegation battle in Nottingham Forest. But the stats were as follows. Chris Wood with 14 goals, Eddie NKETIAH with 5, Chris Wood 1 assist, and NKETIAH with 2. Now, Arsenal are a much better side. They're going to create more chances for a player like NKETIAH. I think NKETIAH is fine. Last season, when he had a run in the squad, he impressed me a little bit. You know, he's all right. He's not the player that Arsenal need to lead that line because he isn't good enough for them. Is he good enough for us? Probably. But for the figures reported of, I think it was over 25 million, and for the wage bill, which he doesn't want to go any lower than 150 or whatever it is, and wants to be the highest wage player on it, it ain't worth it. You know, is he going to get more goals than Chris Wood this season? I don't think so. Chris Wood's obviously older, but NKETIAH's not that young. He is 25. So it doesn't make much sense to me to sort of break the wage bill and pay that much money for a player that I don't think is that impressive. He's okay. If he comes in, I'll support him, and I think he could do a job. But between Wood and Taiwo, I think we've got that covered. So I would happily go for Gimenez over him. But it seems like that's died down as well. He's also an unknown in the Premier League, don't get me wrong. You know, you put his numbers up if he came, and next season, there might be less than NKETIAH's. It's more of an unknown, but at the moment, I think I would take the unknown over NKETIAH for the fee reported. But I'm sure there's other options out there that we can look at instead of him. It's just not for me, that one, but we'll see. And the worrying thing reported is that it sounds like the hierarchy and ownership want one player and the recruitment team want another. And just last week I was saying it felt like we'd finally got to a recruitment policy that made sense, where everyone was aligned, and it isn't you get one player, you get one player, you get one player. It feels a bit more cohesive. So I don't want us to slip back into that. And with the links of people like Montiel, Ribeiro, Danjuma, we're going back to these things. I'm sure there'll be a Bashuai link soon. We fall into the same old traps. It's gone from being a really positive transfer window that looked promising to a absolute panic and meltdown. So, yeah, I hope we make the right decision. I hope we're sensible, and we don't go too crazy. Who would you choose out of the two, Jacob? And
I choose Gimenez. I think it's a super, super, super quick and easy answer. The last 2 seasons he scored, 22-23, he scored 15 goals in 32 games for Feyenoord. Last season he scored 23 and 30 for Feyenoord. And this season he's already scored 2 and 2. He scored more goals. He scored more goals last season than Eddie Nketiah scored in his entire career.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, the league is pretty, it's a hard one to judge. There's certain players that work. They're not always Ruud van Nistelrooy. Suarez worked. There's others that don't quite work. But he obviously knows how to score goals, and that's not going to change with what league he's in. So I'm willing to give him more of a chance, especially if he's in as rich vein of form as he is at the minute, over a player that I've seen more often and haven't been that impressed. So not for me.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. Like you said, if Eddie Nketiah, I think we're probably both of the opinion it will end up being Eddie Nketiah, won't it? But I think I'll still support him. I still want him to do well. I'm still
absolutely
looking forward to seeing him wear a Forest shirt. I just, if I'm offered the two at the same price or relatively the same price, I think 999,000 times out of 1,000,000, I'm gonna. All right, I'm gonna pick.
Yeah, more often than not, you'd pick Gimenez. But listen, we weren't happy with Wood when he came in, and look at him now. We don't want him to be replaced because he's so important and so influential to us. So, if Nketiah comes in and sets the world on fire, I'd be so thrilled to be wrong. It means he's done well for us. So I'll support him when he comes in. If he comes in, it's just a question of him versus another. I go for another. That's it.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose on that same spectrum, Chris Wood scored 15 goals last season, which is 8 shy of Eddie Nketiah's entire career. So,
yeah, I saw that Chris Wood is only a few off actually becoming Forest's all-time leading Premier League goal scorer, which is quite funny. It shows how little we've been in the Premier League. But
that says more about Forest than it does Chris Wood,
but I hope he does it. It's achievable this season. I think there's only 8 more. Is it 8 more?
Yeah.
Could be wrong in that, but it'd be quite nice to break that record.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, looking at his record, Chris Wood's only had, so he's been in the Premier League now for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So this is his 8th season in the Premier League. Of the previous 7, only in 2 of those did he not get double figures in goals, and those 2 were the loan to Newcastle season. Bought by Newcastle season, and then the loan to Forest season. So, heritage, mate. Heritage. Bagsman. JJ, talk to me about fantasy football.
Yes, we've got a fantasy football league. I was pleased to see a lot of you join. We've got over 250 people join. I think we've got 260.
That's amazing.
Could be more because there's a lot of joint positions, so that's great. Obviously, the idea is you got to try and beat me and Jacob. I'm going to put mine and Jacob's score up now, and then we're going to talk about the top 3. And spoiler alert, it isn't either me or Jacob. So this is mine and Jacob's team. I'm on the left with 56 points. Jacob's on the right with 39, which is shocking. But the 2 differences are Jacob's on for Haaland. I haven't because he's too bloody expensive. Interestingly, you went for Sangare, Jacob. That's an interesting player. Can't see him getting you too many points there, but we did all right, I think. I think I did obviously much better. I've got around the average points being 57. I did 56. Jacob got 39. But we're on the board, Jacob. We're on the board.
You absolute maniac. We both did all right, but I did much better.
Yeah, you were actually a bit rubbish. But who's the top three in a minute?
Show me. Talk to me.
I sent it to you, so hopefully you know.
You're going to put it on the screen, aren't you?
I haven't got a graphic for it.
Oh, my good Lord, Joshua.
Sorry, everybody.
Sorry, I've had to Joshua runner. Where have you put it?
Uh-oh.
Technology. Put it in the man hours.
Well, I'll tell you.
Here we go.
Oh,
We've got Taylor Mellors. Third place. We've got Kieran Ring with 81 points. Sorry, joint second.
Oh
JJ's
my
not
God.
even put first
This
place
is a
on
disaster.
here. Joint second place is Kieran Ring, which is 4231. Very nice name. 81 points. Joint with him is Dylan Cox, which is Chris Woods-Wood. Very nice name. 81 points. And then top of the league is Taylor Mellors of Olaina with 84 points. 84 points? You got to be. He's definitely paying someone off there for them points. Come on.
I just think we're not very good, to be honest with you.
I mean, there is that in there.
But he's top of the league. Hopefully, me and Jacob can bring it back. But unfortunately, I don't think Jacob will. But I'm not saying there will be a prize. All I'll say is as well, my goal is also to beat Chris from Forest All Over podcast. I'm 1 point ahead of him. So all signs point to success for now. And I've just got a notification saying that Ipswich are set to sign Armando Brozier, which is interesting.
Coupled with Calvin Phillips. Who else have they signed?
Hutchinson. I wanted Hutchinson. He would have been a good person to in replacement of Alanga and Hudson-Odoi at the weekend.
Yeah. So I'm just looking at my fancy team. I must absolute cretin. I forgot that Rasmus Højlund was injured for 3 months.
Yeah, and you've got Rax Saki, who's now in the Championship.
Oh, come on, man.
You'll get there, Jacob. You'll get there, pal.
Snarf. I ain't even got any free transfers.
Bloody hell. Disaster, isn't it?
Oh, Cameron's Britain, mate.
Should we put him out of the misery?
Put him out of the misery. If you
wait, no, we can't. We can't. This is a shit show. This has gone to
Southampton. Shit. Southampton, JJ. Saturday. Down on the coast.
Yes. The return of the shithouse Ben Brereton Diaz.
Oh, yeah.
Not nice. I've seen videos of him against Newcastle. I've seen him rattle Newcastle, or so they like to think. I just can't stand him. He's put the days on his end of his name and he's become, you just can't have him. Just can't have him. Which also means he's going to score against us. It's almost certain. So I think Southampton are pretty poor. I think the manager's not great. I think they're going to really struggle this season. We are famously not fantastic away either. So it might not be a classic game. I think we've got to target it for 3 points, because I think this is something where we struggled last season, where teams that we have to be beaten to not be around come the end of the season, we struggled to. So got to target it for 3 points. I'm feeling still positive after our first game. They couldn't beat 10-man Newcastle. I don't think they've got quite the quality that they need to stay in the league. So I hope for a Forest win, and I hope for a 2-0 comfortable win without having to worry in the last 10 minutes that we're only 1-up.
Wow. If I'm remembering correctly, JJ, Southampton away was one of the only away games that we won in our first season in the Premier League, wasn't it?
I think so, yeah.
So. I'm gonna go all the way out there and say it's gonna be 1-0 Forest.
Yeah. I'll take it. It will just be very nervy. But it would be nice if it was 1-0, because it means that we've stopped the rot.
JJ, I'm going to say 1-0, but I'd love a second.
I'd love a third. I'd love a fourth, Jacob. You know what I mean? Let's just win comfortably, please. If we lose this game, oh my God, stay off social media, because the meltdown will be incredible.
In fairness, looking at our first 2 games, if you come away 1 point after those 2 games,
No,
right? No.
no. We've
Okay.
got a lot of the
All
season
right.
to play. We're not going to come away with 1 point. We're going to come away with 4.
Okay.
I
All
can see
right.
why it would be a head loss. We have got a very fortunate opening fixture run, but either way, it won't be nice to watch if we don't win.
No, it will not. We also have Newcastle, don't we? In the
Yeah. In the Carabao Cup.
And the Carabao Cup, which will be, I think I'm going to that actually.
Nice.
I'm going to that, which will be fun. I wonder if they'll open every stand. Probably not.
I think it'll be well attended. I think it's a bit more interesting than a Blackpool in the cup.
Yeah.
Just why bother? That's what I think. When I saw the draw and I saw Newcastle, I thought, oh, what's the point? They might play youth. We've also got more depth, so we might be able to field a stronger team than we typically would if we're rotating. But it's always one of those this early on in the season. It's a cup competition I don't care about unless we get to the semi-finals like we did. If we lose, I'm not bothered, you know. And I know there'll be people out there that are distraught about that and want to win every game, which I completely understand. I just think the cup is, at this point, a bit of a hindrance when we've got really important games this early on in the season, and the league is the first priority.
Yeah.
But if we win them, I'll be as thrilled as anyone. If we lose it, my head won't go because it's fine. It's just the Carabao Cup, innit?
His head will go, I promise you. If you joined us for the first time, thank you very much for finding us. Lord knows how you did. And thank you for staying till the end. If you've come back again and 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 again, God knows we love you. You Reds.